Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.
G'day, I'm Fletch and welcome to the show. Whilst in Mudgee, New South Wales, I have found a few more things for you. So let's get started in this week's Classic Restos on the road. A beautiful shady grassed area. The magnificent Mudgee railway station behind us as a backdrop. The station built in 1884, but more on that later. For now, it's a little Mini Moke, and it has a great story. This is Graeme, a local here in Mudgee. It's about his Mini Moke, and this is his story.
What this vehicle means to me is a lot, actually. When we bought it in 1969, we served, as I mentioned earlier, we served when I was in the Air Force. We had it for 2 years in Malaysia, and when we're coming home, my wife says, I want to bring it home. And I said, no. Thankfully, I lost that argument. We brought it home. It's been a marvellous vehicle to us for all these years since we've been home. Her family car. She used to travel around with 2 little kids in it. It was a brilliant little car. We all grew it, attached to it. When we decided to restore it, after it was sandblasted and we saw what was done, the damage that rust had done to it, I thought, how am I going to handle this? I'm not a panel beater, I'm not this, I'm not that. So I cut all the rust out. Yeah, it wasn't too difficult. Got a local business to make some panels for it. And I thought, well, I'm not a welder by trade. So I bought myself a MIG welder, taught myself to use it, put it all together, and got it, and then repainted it myself. I'd like to thank my wife, Denise, for her support and encouragement.
And thanks to the Cudgegong Valley Pioneer Vehicle Club. How are you, Graeme?
I'm excellent, thanks, Fletch.
You're looking good?
Oh, any fit I'd be dangerous.
Good on you, mate.
Only to myself, though.
Absolutely. What a beautiful place you live in. Gotta love Mudgee here in New South Wales.
Oh, it is. It's a fantastic place, yes.
How long have you lived here?
38 years, coming on 39.
You're almost a local.
Almost.
Oh, good on you, good on you. It's a very nice part of the world. And like our regional centres around New South Wales, it's not just the town itself, but it's the places, the outlying areas from the towns as well. Many places you can go to and visit, and the list goes on.
It does, yes.
So Graeme, what can you share with us about the Moke?
When we bought this Moke, I was serving in the Royal Australian Airforce in Malaysia, and some friends of ours bought it brand new, and when they were getting shipped home, they offered it to us, so we bought it off them, and that was in 1969. So this little old Moke is fairly old, and we had it for 2 years up there, and we decided we'd bring it home. And it was my wife's car running around for the whole time we were back here, back to Williamtown, down to Canberra, down to Penrith. I left the Air Force, we came up to Mudgee, and once again it was her car. Kids learned to drive in it, even though they were only knee-high to a grasshopper at the time, and after a while everyone got sick of it, so it got parked up, because there's only an old car there. What the heck, it was parked under a tree. And about four or 5 years ago, our granddaughter was walking past our home and saw it and said, Nan, what's that? She said, what's that little truck? And Nan told her, and she says, I like that little truck. And I said, well, let's do it up for Lucy. I said, okay. So I said, well, make sure the engine works. So I did all the checks, carburetor points, plugs, that, and it started first go. So that's when the fun started. Stripped it right down to bare metal, sandblasted, and the rust. wasn't it?
Yeah, sandblasting can be good, but it can also do a lot of revealing, can't it?
Well, in this case, I'm glad it did do the revealing. Made me aware of
Yeah.
the damage the rust had done.
Yeah, found the Swiss cheese.
It did, yeah. So we got some panels made up with a local business and put it all together, welded it all up, painted it, and there it is.
So there you go, it's a ground up resto.
Oh yes.
And being a Moke as well, there's not that many of them around,
Well,
and it's a car that's well, you know, it's not in the muscle car category,
No.
and there's not a lot of bling on the vehicle, but it's the story of survival, and it is a classic.
yes, and a fun car.
Absolutely, absolutely. So look at the enjoyment over the decades that this vehicle has given Graeme and his family. It just goes to show, it doesn't matter what type of vehicle it is, bike, truck, it's the pleasure that these things can bring along the way.
Yeah, and this one is actually, as I mentioned earlier, it's a 1967 English production.
Right, okay, so that's got to be even rarer, right?
One of these sold about 4 years ago in England for £34,000 sterling.
There you go. You can, what, roughly double that for Australian dollars?
Yeah, you're looking roughly 70,000 Australian dollars.
And they're such a simplistic vehicle, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's nothing fancy about a Moke. It's like you said earlier, about pile in, have some fun in the sunshine when we can get some, and that's what it's all about.
They're originally designed, if I may go into the history of the Moke a bit,
Yep.
for the British Army.
Yes.
As a air transportable parachutable vehicle for the British Army. The Army took a couple for trials and rejected it. Too underpower, too smaller wheels, too low to the ground.
Interesting too, Graeme, the Californian Moke to break into the American market.
That is correct. Yes, they thought, well, you see a lot of the movies from America all done in California on the beaches.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's and apparently they were quite a success over there.
They did well there.
Yeah.
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 Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for bringing this family jewel, this prized possession that has obviously given your family decades of pleasure, and it's not over yet. Thanks for coming along here today, and also ex-Air Force, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Fletch.
You're welcome, Graeme. Thanks, mate.
Every weekend around Australia, motoring enthusiasts get together to share their passion for cars and bikes. It's a passion that brings us together. All sorts of people, all sorts of cars and bikes. From the classics of today to the classics of tomorrow. At Shannons, we understand enthusiasts. So when it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Moving right along, as we do, happy now to have Ken, the president of the Cudgegong Valley Pioneer Vehicle Club. How are you, Ken?
I'm good, thanks, Fletch.
It's away, mate. Thank you very much for bringing this along. You don't see these every day. 1955 Studebaker.
Yes.
Sitting here in all its exuberance.
Yes.
How'd you end up with that?
By chance, actually. I ran into at the local mower shop about 3 or 4 years ago. Got talking to him about old cars because he was in a old Wolseley 6, and mentioned I liked Studebakers, and he said, well, I'd like to buy one. I've always wanted to buy one, and he said, oh, you can buy mine, and wow. That led to me now owning this.
Wow, these are rare on the grass, these things. We're talking 1955. Just to put it into perspective, line ball with the FJ Holden at the time.
Yep.
American vehicle here, obviously. 1955, a bit of an era for the bling with the stainless steel trim. Holden at the same time, for example, did a beautiful job on their chroming or their chrome work of their grille. We see that nice bright work here on the front of the Studebaker, as well as talking of trim up the side. And that beautiful stainless steel that almost like a Well, the
Sun visor.
a sun visor
Mm.
over the screen.
Yep, yep.
That's a nice touch.
It is, yeah.
Now, first things first, Ken, let's talk about the engine. Up front, we have a Flathead 6.
Yep.
What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a 185 cubic inch. It's got 101 horsepower at 4,000 RPM and has a unusual feature of hill hold.
Now, that's interesting.
Mm.
Hill hold, okay, so you're on a hill, foot on the clutch, and the car
Yep.
stays in the position. So 1955 we're talking here. So, wow,
Mm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, they had quite a few novel ideas.
Yeah. Okay, we look into the interior of the car. Like most cars from the mid-50s to late 50s, around the A-pillar, that sweep-around section of the dashboard, almost very EK Holden.
Yep.
The Fords, the custom lines had the same shape as well. That was the way the manufacturers went. They shaped their A-pillars
Yeah. They're
that
very-
way, didn't they?
Very stylish.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. You always used to, well, you great to knock your knee on as you get in.
Yeah.
Has that happened to you, Ken?
No.
You're
no.
a man of precision. The interior, obviously, that's all been done.
Yes, yeah. The car was originally from Western Australia, and it was restored in 2002 over there, and then the guy I bought it off brought it over here in 2010. But, yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So interesting. The car was made. These cars were made right-hand drive from the States and sent out.
Yeah. Some were made in, well, most of their production was in South Bend, and others were made in Canada. So as far as I know, this one was made in America, not in
right.
Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sent out already assembled
As far as I know.
in a container.
Yeah.
Wow, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they could see, obviously, a European market back in those days,
Yeah.
enough to make these and send them out to Australia. So, albeit probably a handful, though, I wouldn't imagine many.
Yeah, I don't know. But there's not many of this particular model in the country,
Yep.
you know.
With the styling, you can really see it's Studebaker all day long. I
Yeah.
don't think there wasn't another car of the time that looked similar to a Studebaker.
No.
They just had their own look, didn't
Yeah,
they?
Raymond Lowry was the designer, and he had some unusual ideas, but some people I love it, but others don't necessarily like the big chrome on the front. It sets them out.
Yeah, I think so. A little bit too bold for some, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome example. Okay, so in terms of its life, do you know where it did most of its work, or where
Western
it actually?
Australia.
It was in Western Australia
Yeah.
most of its time.
Most of the time, as
Yeah.
far as I know, yeah.
Wow,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been through a lot of summers, Ken?
It has, yeah. No air conditioning.
Yeah, that's unreal. Yeah, been through all that and it's come out the other side, hasn't it? Yeah, awesome stuff. All right, Ken, thank you very much. We've got a bit of a jam-packed episode. We've just about ran out of time. Thank you so much. Could
Yep.
talk to you for ages about this car. I find them very unique. Love the styling. It's a great example. Nice that a restoration was done back in 2002.
Yeah.
And just before you do go, just
Yep.
mention with the wheelbase,
Yeah.
how you tell a Studebaker between a long and a short wheelbase.
Yeah, I found out recently that this is a short wheelbase. It's 5.3 metres long, but it's a short wheelbase. The long wheelbase actually had flipper windows in the back doors as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the short wheelbase.
Yes.
There you
Yeah.
go. Interesting stuff. Ken, it's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you, Fletch.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, I've always loved Studebakers. Didn't really know a lot about them, but as from a young kid, I've always loved them. Some of the unique features that they've got. The experience of driving this car is easy going. It's a classic cruiser. You get it into top gear with the overdrive on, and it just cruises along. Even though it's a manual, it's a bit like operating an automatic. If you come to a hill, you plant your foot, and it actually drops the overdrive out and kicks it back a gear. You get up the hill, and then you take your foot off the accelerator, and it drops back into overdrive. Very similar to an automatic, but a manual. On the freeway, it'll run, at 110 k's all day, and it doesn't feel like it's working, For a comparatively small 6-cylinder engine, it pushes a fairly heavy car along really well.
This Here's Mudgee railway station. It's a lot quieter these days than it would have been back in the hustle and bustle of people travelling quite regularly every day, and sometimes multiple times from this platform. These railway stations, there's something about them, and I think they align themselves with our classic vehicles on a history timeline. The Mudgee residents campaigned for years to the New South Wales state government to have their own railway line, and after 10 years their dream was alive when the line opened in 1884, and so this station was made, and there was dancing in the streets. The celebrations were massive. There were live bands to mark the occasion as one of the greatest days in history for Mudgee. This station platform, those lines down there, would have experienced the steam locomotive era and decades of it before then going into our diesel locomotives. And the last passenger train to arrive and depart from this station was 1985. This station and other stations this size around the state, around the country, employed full-time staff. You could just imagine the feeling here of the people excited for their travel back in the day. And it would have seen the returning of our troops from both world wars. All I can say is thank goodness these buildings are heritage listed, and this particular station since the 2nd of April 1999.
My passion for cars began when Nana and Pop bought their new Toyota Crown. It was Nana's, really. She loved that car. We went everywhere in it.
My passion now is just the same, even though my cars are a little different.
I've still got Nana's car, couldn't part with it. And I reckon if she was here today, she'd be insured with Shannons too.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. Most of these vehicles are insured with Shannons, and it's easy to see why. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646, and the Shannons Club awaits you. Signing up to become a member has never been easier. For more information, visit shannons.com.au.
How cool is this? We're inside the Robert Stein winery, classic motorcycle collection, and Robert Stein's grandson, Jacob. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, Fletch. Thanks for coming out.
That's okay. That's okay. I couldn't miss this opportunity. Heard that you guys had a classic motorcycle collection. But before we get onto that, just a little bit about the winery. What a beautiful place to come for a drink and have a meal.
Yeah, it sure is. We agree. We've got such a great view. We have vineyard, a winery, a restaurant, and a working farm where we have free-range pigs and cattle and sheep. So it really is quite a nice operation for our family to be able to manage these days.
It's all about carrying on the heritage too. As soon as you walk through the door outside there's a picture of your grandfather there, Robert, a great shot of him there up on the wall. So just quickly, Jacob, where did it start? Did he just think, look, I'll get 25 acres and I'll grow some grapes? Like, where did it begin with him?
Yeah, that's exactly right. He did start it as the family back in 1976. They purchased the original 25 acres and started planting a hobby vineyard, and from there it's grown up into about 50 acres of grapes, and our whole farm is now 600 acres.
A hobby, it's all got out of control, mate, hasn't it?
It has, exactly. And we've been through the winery, so you now see that we make, you know, a wide range of wines for ourselves and others in the region.
And look, you've really aced out with your staff. The girls out there are so friendly. They're great.
They are.
And there's a bit of wine tasting going on out there at the moment. Sitting around the table, you know, the cheese platters are around and the food, and what an atmosphere. And I just think it's great that family business starting off in the 70s, planting a few grapes, has turned into such an empire for you, and it's on your shoulders now.
Yeah, exactly. It looks that way. That's right. But it's such a great honour, I suppose, to carry on the tradition, and me being third generation. You know, who knows? I've got 2 little boys. And it'll be really nice to pass it on to them.
And of course you like a glass of wine, don't you, Jacob?
Oh, of course. Nothing better than a beer or a wine on a Friday afternoon.
A Stein's, of course.
That's right.
Okay, the motorcycles. Now, I know they're your grandfather's, mainly British bikes. We've got Douglas's here. We've got a couple of Velisets, BSA, big line of bikes here. Where did it start with him?
Yeah, so it started with him having a love affair, like a lot of people did in Sydney in the 20s to 40s. You know, there was a lot more motorbikes being ridden in Sydney because cars were a lot more expensive back then as well. And he used to ride bikes along Parramatta Road into Sydney, where he worked as a carpenter. So fast forward to now, he had to get rid of those bikes to buy the family car and the house back then in Smithfield. But fast forward to now, we have 17 bikes in the collection, and we try and really keep them well maintained, so they all do run, and you can see by the drip trays, we get them out and running quite regularly. We also have 3 which are registered, so it's my hard job or duty to get them out on a weekend when the sun's shining.
It just goes to show, although his life changed there just for a little moment, you just can't take the hobby out of the guy.
Yeah, that's right.
The bikes went away from him, and then obviously came back a little bit later on. I think it's marvellous here. It's such a, it's a variety here at the winery, not only, you know, to have a drink of wine and experience some beautiful food, but to throw this in as a bonus as well.
Yeah, that's right.
What a place to come to.
Yeah, no, it sure is. It's good to have that variation amongst not being, you know, just a winery or a cellar door. And it's amazing the feedback that we get from people coming in. They get to see bikes that you don't see on the street as much these days, and all the memorabilia behind us, the couple of petrol Bowsers and all of the number plate collection. So it's just a good sort of glimpse into the past.
Absolutely. Now you're watching the episode, you want to find out more information, website for Stein's.
robertstein.com.au, and we're also on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Awesome stuff. When you plan your roadie, it goes without saying, you come to Mudgee, you've got to come out and see this guy and the winery here, the premises. It's absolutely fantastic. Jacob, thank you for the opportunity for a chat.
Excellent. No worries. Thank you, Fletch. Thanks for coming out.
That's all right. You're welcome. Lovely to meet you.
You too.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Rounding off, got to show you this, Coffee and Cars here in Mudgee. How you doing, Ken?
I'm going really well, thanks, Fletch.
That's the way, mate. Third Sunday of every month?
Yes, every third Sunday.
Yep. Outside, right in front of the historic Mudgee railway station. Gorgeous backdrop, great location.
It is, yeah, and the weather's kind to us this month.
How long have you been doing it for, Ken?
It's been running for a couple of years now, and it's growing each month.
Yeah. Good to see the RFS boys are here.
Yeah, we usually try to have some sort of a display of different things to add a bit of colour to it.
Yeah. A lot of variety. We've got bikes, all different types of cars. A tractor rolled in earlier, just out on the street. Any drove. You can do those sorts of things out here, out in the west, can't you, Ken?
You can, yes.
Ken, there's no doubt about it. You and the guys in the club do a fantastic job for Mudgee and surrounding areas as well. Numbers for members in the club are increasing. Coffee and Cars numbers increasing every third Sunday of every month. Keep up your great work, mate.
Thank you, Fletch.
And that was just a toe in the water, showing you some of Coffee and Cars Mudgee. A nice way to round off a busy episode. We had Graeme and the story of his Moke, Ken and his Studebaker, a chance to see the old railway station in Mudgee, and catching up with Jacob Stein, touching on their classic bike collection. And hopefully soon you can plan your road trip around the Mudgee region. I chose to stay at the Gulgong Tourist Park, around about 25 minutes drive north of Mudgee. And like all of these places in our regional areas, they always appreciate your business. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.